And we are crossing the color line with two women, one black and the other white, both graduates of a historically black school. And we want to hear from you on Facebook and Twitter. Please join the conversation at #OurTakeAriseTV. And remember to leave your comments on our Facebook page, Our Take on Arise TV. Well, my guest co-host, Eunice Omole, and I welcome a young singer whose debut song and video garnered a lot of attention, but not necessarily for the best reasons. 22-year-old Jillian Parker wrote the song Mr. Football and filmed the music video on the historical black campus of Howard University, a school where she attended both undergrad and graduate school. Thank you, Jillian, for joining us today. Also with her, Mr. Football. Well, he's not quite Mr. Football himself. I'm not going to take anything away from you, Malcolm. But Malcolm Crawford was in the music video, Mr. Football. He's also proudly a Howard University alum who, as I mentioned, was in the music video. The two are here to discuss the backlash around the song and video. But before we get to the conversation, why don't we just take a listen and we'll discuss it on the back end, okay? Okay. Let's do that. Let's hear Mr. Football.
Mr. Football, 6'4" tall, captain running back to me. He's got every girl at his fingertips, but acts like he don't give a damn. They said be careful and they said just stay away, 'cause when no one is around, he'll crawl up inside your heart. But when he walks out, you'll have to tear it all apart. Now I don't believe that anybody can be so perfect. I know that it's my turn and I deserve this. He says he won't leave me, that I'm worth it.
And that was Jillian Parker, the songwriter, singer, and star of the music video, Mr. Football. Malcolm, where were you? I think if we blinked, we missed you. You were in the video, right?
I was in the video.
He was in the beginning.
You were in the way back.
I was in the front for like 1 second.
For like a second.
Yeah, I started Mr. Football #1.
All right.
Football player #1. That was me.
Mr. Football is actually Tavon Sheets, and Tavon was planning on joining us here today, but guess what? He's on the football field practicing, and so unfortunately he can't be here today. Jillian, you wrote this song. Tell me again, was it 2011, 2012?
Yes, it is the summer of 2011.
Is it an autobiographical song?
Yes, it was based on a true story. It was definitely my perspective of it. I mean, if there was a Mrs. Lacrosse, I'm sure it would look different. But yeah, it was based off a true story that summer.
What made you decide to shoot the video on the campus of Howard University?
Well, I'm a very proud student. I've been very involved in the community at Howard, and I love my school, and I love my friends, and I wanted my video to be representative of where I went to school and my home. So. And
when you posted the video, initially, what were you thinking the feedback would be like?
I honestly didn't even expect that many people to even watch it, but then on day 4 it was like 64,000 people, and I was in shock, and I had no idea that I was even going to have anyone watch it. I figured, you know, I was really rooting for like 500.
And next thing you know, you've got 64,000 people watching your video. Yeah. But you had one person who saw the video in particular who took issue with it. Specifically, she took issue with the interracial depiction of the relationship. What did you think when you first heard of Jamilah Lemieux's article and really taking you to task for not only writing the song, but more specifically producing the video on the campus of Howard?
I was horrified when I first found out, and that's when I called Malcolm.
How did you find out?
Actually, I was working. I'm a boat painter, so I was working at the yard, and I had like 60 texts, and no one texts me. So I ended up looking at my texts, and my teammates and a bunch of people were blowing up my phone. And so when I wrote them, they were like, "Oh, it's this article, and we got you." And I honestly had no idea, so I had to wait till I was done working. And then when I checked the computer, I was like, saw the pictures, and I was like, "Oh wow, an article!" And then I read it, and then I was like humiliated. I was horrified, but I had Malcolm, and I had my friends. They were so supportive, and it just made it it ended up being a blessing in disguise, I think, in the long run.
And I should point out that Jamilah Lemieux writes, first of all, she is a Howard University alum. One of the things that she wrote about is she says that Howard University is a mecca. It is where black women go to school and they feel empowered, they feel validated. Did you in any way, shape, or form understand the perspective that she was presenting?
I read her article, and I definitely, I understand where she's coming from. Howard is known for being a place for
it's a historically black university.
Yeah, and so I understand where she was coming from. I understand her point of view on the subject, on the matter of that there can be negative stereotypes and things like that. However, I don't. As the more I watched my own video like 100 times trying to figure out where I went wrong, and I just didn't see how my video could portray black people in a negative light in the way that she was speaking of.
Malcolm, what did you think?
Well, when I read the article, it seemed like the way she was referring to Howard, she was referring to it more as a social club instead of the fact that it's an institution for learning. So with that, it comes with a variety of people who want to seek that education. With that being Howard, like everyone wants to try to get the Howard education, but she was going with the social, how it was a social club and how we interact socially with the black community instead of going there for our education.
Jillian, I'm curious as to why you selected Howard, a historically black university, as a place to go to not only graduate school, but also undergrad.
Yeah. Well, I was actually transferring teams, and we played Howard. And the Howard lacrosse team, something about them is that they never give up. And while they are at a disadvantage a lot of times with recruiting, they just never give up. So when we played against them and I was looking for a new team, I just loved the passion and I loved the team camaraderie, and I just needed to be a part of it. And so when I was looking for teams, I got a call from the coach, and she invited me there on scholarship. And so, I took the opportunity, and it ended up being like the best decision I've ever made. So.
Had you ever attended any kind of school or been in any program in which you were the minority, so were you familiar with the kind of social surroundings that you were going to face at Howard?
No, I'm from Bristol, Rhode Island, so I actually know. And when I went to Howard, it was a culture shock. It was definitely a new experience, but it was just so much greater than I would ever have anticipated. So I was blessed.
We see in the music video that you're obviously surrounded by a number of different people. I'm assuming that these were all your friends.
Yeah.
What kind of conversations did you go into this video with your friends? Did any of them have any kind of perspective on what the response might be like with that kind of image, the image of you with an African-American boyfriend?
Honestly, no. When I first came up with the idea, I just knew I needed to make a music video, and it was something I had to do. And so when I called everyone and I told everyone my idea, they were so excited and so thrilled to help out, and everyone just wanted to be a part of it. And most of them were there for when Mr. Football occurrence actually happened. So they were super supportive, because it ended up being like a very, like an underdog kind of story, and then you get to make a video,
But there are some people. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, for full disclosure, my dad went to Howard, so I'm very familiar with the HU network. I was born and raised in D.C. So having said that, a lot of people, especially my dad and generations before him, really put Howard to a specific standard as far as like education, things like that. So when situations come up like this, you start to question. So I wonder, how would you address people who wonder, what your intent was for really going to Howard and, subsequently creating a video after you graduated?
Well, I went to Howard for lacrosse, and I wanted to make a video with my friends. And so I guess when people question me on the video, it really was just a story, and I would love to be a singer. I'm really trying. My demo's recently finished, and I just really want to be a singer. So the fact that I used Howard and my friends is secondary to like the real, like the goal was to make a music video. And
in the same vein, I read articles about how you felt so unique being at Howard. You felt like there was a sense of notoriety, and how you were different. Did that come into play, you think, on whether or not to put a video like this together? Like, was this like some way of you springboarding into a music career that you were always thinking about having?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, that article was one of my friend's papers, and so it wasn't really quite exactly, I think, in context. But I do feel like at Howard, you do have a chance. I mean, you stick out. My name is very simple. It's Jill. So most people.
I think you're going to stick out for other reasons.
Yeah, but we're going to go with that.
But Jill, I'm going to give you an opportunity to respond to that question. But Malcolm, while we have you for this segment, I'm curious as to the kind of feedback that you've gotten, because I've read some comments that said, you know, why were the black guys part of this video? How dare they? What kind of feedback did you get?
Well, from campus, what I really heard, there wasn't any negative feedback for the video so much. It was mainly the article. Like, people were disappointed that it was a Howard alumni saying this stuff. Because we're saying, like, what she was saying was, like, hindering the growth of Howard. Like, even though it's an institution, it pretty much has its own life. And with that life comes changes, comes evolution. And, like, what I heard most was, like, she's really hurting that change by saying, like, it needs to stay how it is. It needs to be exclusive. And like she was just putting this label on it as maybe like blacks only, no interaction from any outside cultures or anything like that. And like a lot of people were just disappointed just from that article, being from a Howard alumni.
I wonder from...
Well, I'm sorry, Eunice. Unfortunately, we have to wrap this up, but we will continue the conversation. Malcolm Crawford, Jillian Parker. Malcolm, thank you so much for joining the conversation and your appearance in the Mr. Football. I might have to watch the video a couple more times, but I know I will see you. All right? Just keep on the road.
Football player number one.
Yeah. Football player number one. All right. Look out for football player number one, and you are watching Our Take. Our Take continues our discussion with singer and songwriter Jillian Parker. Jillian wrote the song and starred in the music video, Mr. Football, filmed on the campus of her alma mater and historically black school, Howard University. Now my guest co-host, Eunice Omole, and I welcome Jamilah Lemieux, who also graduated from Howard and has a less than favorable opinion about the video. Lemieux is an editor for Ebony Magazine and wrote an article about the video and the message it sends. And joining us via Skype from New Jersey is Brittney Cooper, who is an assistant professor at Rutgers University of Women's and Gender Studies and Africana Studies. By the way, Dr. Cooper is also a graduate of Howard. Oh my gosh.
Full disclosure. I love it.
Disclosure. Eunice, by the way, her dad graduated from Howard,
Yes.
Professor Cooper. Before we start the conversation, I want us to listen to Jillian's video one more time. This is Mr. Football. Let's take a listen.
'Cause when no one is around, he'll crawl up inside your heart. But when he walks out, you'll have to tear it all apart. Now I don't believe that anybody can be so perfect. I know that it's my turn, and I deserve this. He says he won't leave me, that I'm worth it. And baby runs back to me, runs back to me, runs back to me.
And that is Jillian Parker singing her song, Mr. Football. Jamilah Lemieux, thank you for joining us today. You wrote a piece that has really just spread like wildfire online about this video. One of the things that you say about Howard, you say, it is not the place where white girls go to find desirable men. In a world where black girls are often made to feel less desirable, my alma mater is a space in which sisters are the norm. At Howard, the majority of the handsome straight boys on campus are checking for us. At Howard, we are the standard of beauty. Black moms send their boys there hoping they'll bring home nice young sisters after their heart. You don't hear all the athletes here like white girls. Jamilah, there are some that would say they send their kids to school to get an education.
Yeah, sure. There are some that would say that. And there are some that would say that they send their children to become developed and nurtured as individuals and to come to understand their role and their responsibilities in the black community. Some of those men will find love and partnership with black women. Some of them will find it with white women. My article and criticism of the video was not a takedown of interracial dating. It was about what that video meant and what seeing those images on the campus of Howard University meant to me and to a lot of other young black women who went to Howard, who are familiar with Howard and other HBCUs. So, and I do need to put this out there that no matter what I say in this conversation, for so many people, I'm already the big, mad, angry black woman, right? Like, no matter how self-satisfied I am in life, no matter how pleasant I am, no matter the fact that I don't have a personal issue with this young lady for making a song, she is a Bison. We have that connection. We will have that connection forever.
And by Bison, you mean by Howard University.
Right. Yes, by Bison.
Just for those who may not understand what that was about.
Like, it's a whole Howard family thing going, right? But, you know, we share the same alma mater. We love our school. However, images matter, and black spaces have a right to exist. It's something that a young woman said to me the other day when we were talking about the article. And I have no problem defending anything that I said in that article. I don't discount her right to go to Howard. I don't discount her right to date while at Howard. But when I looked at that video, those images were very uncomfortable.
Jillian, I want to give you a chance to respond to that.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, I understand where you're coming from. I know that my school is a historical black university. I am aware. However, in my video, I portrayed, when I was talking to my my videographer, Akin, I was like, you have to portray him like a god, like the best thing that ever existed, because I need this person, this man, to be something that every girl could dream about. And so in the video, I made sure that he's my best friend. He is literally like a brother to me. And the thing is I portrayed him in my eyes and in the eyes of everyone that were involved as being a very attractive, very educated, a very gentleman. He took me on dates. And in the lyrics it actually says, and all these girls with a thirst as they swing by your room running plays to win. But while they're on the attack, you've been deaf to protect what we have, so I'm on your sideline. So I made reference to the fact that, you know, he doesn't just, you know, as you said, I'm painting him poorly and as promiscuous, but he didn't, in my eyes, like, I made it very clear that he was a very respectable guy who was in love with someone else that wasn't me.
I don't have any questions about the respectability of men who attend Howard University. I think that most of them are good, upstanding, thoughtful, intelligent, articulate, you know, caring men. But those images transcended you, and they transcended what Howard is in 2013, and they transcended him. And I'm sad that you graduated from Howard and didn't recognize any of what I saw wrong with the video, and that you took it from what I read in your comments. And I didn't respond to them there because it wasn't the appropriate place for me to respond to you in the comment section of our site. But I felt that you took it personally, and my article wasn't about you. It was about that imagery. And so it does not matter what your intention was. When we see pretty little white girl in a white dress and a big black football player and the black girl coming out the room looking like they just did something. Yeah. As an artist, as an aspiring artist, you have to be aware of what imagery means.
And on that note, I don't want to cut you off, but I do want to bring someone else into the conversation, and that is Professor Brittney Cooper. Professor Cooper, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you so much for returning to Our Take. I understand that you've been able to listen to both segments and you've been listening to the conversation. And we just heard Jamilah Lemieux say that her criticism of the song and of the video was not a personal attack on Jillian Parker, but it was about the imagery, and it was about and we all know, right, the power of the images. But in talking to Jillian, we are also hearing from someone who simply does not see what some other people saw in that imagery. And I want you, if you can, to speak to that, please.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me, and I'm happy to be on the show with fellow Bison. So, hi, ladies.
Hi.
So I think that what really is important here is that context matters. And so what's at tension is Jillian's right to have an individual collegiate experience, which involves dating, which involves the full sort of social context of Howard. At the same time, understanding that our dating choices, our romantic choices don't happen in a political and historical vacuum. And that's one of the things that I think that Howard is actually wonderful about instilling in students. And so in the last segment, Christina, you panned to a shot of the Howard campus and you panned to a shot of Frederick Douglass Hall, a place where I took many courses. Now, Frederick Douglass's second wife was a white woman. And this was in the 1870s. And black women acted a fool with Frederick Douglass about marrying this white woman. And there's a great quote from Ida B. Wells where she says, "I wish that Frederick Douglass had married a charming, brave, upstanding black woman. But I absolutely respect the woman that he chose to marry because his second wife, Helen Pitts Douglass, had wonderful race politics." And so the pain that Jamilah speaks to, the discomfort, is actually really longstanding. And it is about the fact that one of the things that I heard you say, Jillian, in the first segment was that in the video, you're kind of the underdog. And on an individual level, if you lose the guy, then sure, maybe you're the underdog. But in life, as romantic relationships and beauty politics and sexual politics go, white women are never the underdog. Black women always are. And that context is the way in which many Black women, not all, but many Black women will engage your video. And so much like the women of Frederick Douglass's day, they will say, as I would say and many others would say, this is not about right or wrong. This is not about the choices being wrong or bad, but it is about a historical context in which Black women's desirability is always at stake. And Black men have a critical role to play in that. And so in short, historical context really does matter. And Black women's pain, Black women's experiences, they also really do matter. And at Howard, you get spoiled when you're a Black student because it's one of the few places in the world and one of the few times in life where Black experience is central and centered and where you can work through a lot of these sort of challenges and feel affirmed on a daily basis. And so there is a sort of protection-based impulse when white students are on the campus. There's a question about what your intent is. And I'm not saying that all of those things are fair, but I'm saying that in terms of historical context, I hope that they're understandable, that it's not about an attack. It's not about putting people on the defensive, but it's about everyone trying to understand the other person's perspective.
And I certainly appreciate your comments, Professor Cooper. I see you, Brittney, smiling. I'm assuming that you probably didn't think that you were signing up for all of this when you made this video. What are your thoughts, having heard from Professor Cooper and from Jamilah?
Honestly, I never said that I didn't understand the viewpoint, but I do understand. I definitely understand. All I was saying is that there was no malice intended in creating this video. So in hindsight, I can understand what you're saying. However, I don't believe
do the video
that
the same way again?
I probably would tweak some things, but as a whole, I'm honest. This is a story. All it was a story. And I created this story based on real events that happened. It was actually like a heartbreaking, kind of awful story, and with a happy beat. But honestly, I feel as though the video portrayed exactly what I intended. Now, if we could have changed, his ex-girlfriend to having more clothing, as opposed to, like you said that in one of your pieces in your article, there's definitely some things that can be tweaked. But for
you're saying that this is your personal story, and if you're going to stay true to your story as an artist, then the video stands. That's what you're saying?
I mean, I stand by what I created, and I think that my friends were amazing in helping me. This video, I am a part of Howard. Howard is my home, just like it is anybody else's. I understand the historical significance of being a Black in a historical Black college. But in this day and age, if this video had been made by an all-white cast, no one would have said anything. It's because I am white with a Black man. Now, I understand where you're coming from. However,
I see Jamilah just like waiting. I got to give you an opportunity, and let me give Jamilah an opportunity to respond to that. Go ahead.
Okay, and respectfully, Jillian, I don't think that you understand.
Okay.
And your experiences in this world have not made it easy for you to understand, because at every turn, white women are protected and supported and nurtured. And there were people who don't know either of us who are Black, who had an instinct to protect you from me, from my words.
And I wonder, Professor Cooper, if what we're also seeing and hearing is also part of a generational difference as well. I mean, is it possible that Jillian's generation just simply doesn't have the same kind of, Black or white, have the same kind of attachment to history, to the lessons? Is that at play here as well?
Absolutely. I was sitting here thinking, I think Jamilah raised this point as well. We're talking about folks who were born in the 90s, and that makes a difference. But what I will say very distinctly, though, is it's not actually a different material reality in terms of race. It's a different perception about what's happening. I mean, we're just a few days removed from a young Black girl being attacked for the way that she spoke in public in the Trayvon Martin trial. So notions about race and racism and the ways that they attach to women's bodies are still hyper present. And so much of what happened with Rachel Jeantel was about beauty politics as well, and about a particular kind of desirability. And Christina, if I may just say one point, in the last segment when the young brother was on, I forget his name.
Malcolm.
He said that young brother Malcolm. So he said that the part. So I wanted to push back for young brother Malcolm and just say the way that he sort of understood these critiques was as though that they were being retrograde and as though we are trying to take Howard back to a place in the past, and as though Jamilah portrayed Howard as a social club. And the reality is that we're talking about the full nature of the educational experience. And any Howard alum that's honest with you will tell you that we do as much, if not more, learning outside of the classroom in that space as we do in the classroom. And it has been so critical to shaping our full perspectives about who we are. And so there is a generational shift, but as a young professor, I mean, Jamilah and I are not that much older than you guys are, actually.
I was gonna say, how old are you?
I'm 22.
I'm 28, so not generation.
Ladies, listen, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to cut anyone off, but unfortunately, we have completely run out of time. Professor Brittney Cooper joining us from Rutgers University via Skype. Thank you so much for your insight and your perspective. Thank you, Jamilah Lemieux, as well as Jillian Parker, for joining me here in the studio. And thank you so much for your graciousness and your ability to communicate to one another points in which you might have differences of opinion, but yet we can still do it and, not hurt anyone. Thank you both, ladies. I truly appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.
And you are watching Our Take.